Hello, and welcome to Industry Reactions. Industry Reactions is a weekly briefing on industry events, changes, and future trends that impact your business. We're your hosts, Rick Honer and Mark Friedel from ChemPoint. You can find Industry Reactions on YouTube, LinkedIn, and as a podcast. For those watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and smash that like button. We plan on discussing issues that impact the global industry and will help you uncover new opportunities. We also hope this will provide market intelligence that'll keep you ahead of changing conditions.
All right, we'll start off this week with a couple indexes that have come out. The first one being the Chemical Producers Regional Index. And this is for October, so we're looking back a couple months here. The CPRI had declined 0.3% in October after declines in September and August as well. For those who don't remember, this CPRI is a 3-month moving average index. So as you could guess, going back a few months, we were in the throes of Hurricane Ida shutting down a good part of the chemical industry along the Gulf Coast. So we're still seeing some of the effects of that, but it seems like those metrics are improving, especially now that we're getting into the end of the year.
All right, yeah, and so let's move into the next index, which is U.S. Manufacturing PMI, or Purchasing Managers Index. So it took a dip in October, which spooked a few folks in the industry. But it looks like the PMI is back up in November. And when you look across, it's actually still a very strong report. So there's no question that demand continues to be strong. From a manufacturing standpoint, one of the biggest drags on that number was automotive, which continues to be hard hit because of the chip shortage and other raw material shortages. And, you know, just anecdotally, when you look around, all of the car lots or the sales lots are empty. And so you can see it visibly, but it's also showing up in these manufacturing numbers.
Yeah, for sure. One of the stats I saw was, with the exception of the Q2 2020 pandemic shutdown that we saw in the spring of last year, with the exception of that, Q3 for the automotive industry was the worst quarter in production in almost a decade. I actually think it was over a decade. So yeah, it's definitely been hit hard.
Wow.
All right, I guess we're going to move on to politics. The Superfund tax, which came about from the infrastructure deal that was recently put into place by the U.S. government, there is now a repeal proposal by some senators, I think it's all Republican senators, to repeal that tax. Some of these guys, you know, are estimating that this Superfund tax could cost chemical companies up to $600 million each year for a number of years. And there's concerns that this tax is just going to pass through, go all the way down to the consumer, potentially hurt our industry by shifting production and good jobs overseas. So maybe a potential drawdown in domestic production. So this repeal is out there, and I guess we'll stand on the sidelines and kind of watch how this plays out.
Yeah, certainly. There's no doubt that the taxes will be paid by the consumer. I mean, nobody's going to sit there and absorb those taxes. But I think it's very valid. You know, the competition-wise among the rest of the world, how do you continue? So clearly, it causes a hurdle for the industry, at least in the U.S.
Yeah, especially long term. Obviously, short term, we're not seeing a lot of imports coming into the U.S. like we used to. But a lot of that is temporary situation due to some of the supply chain disruptions.
Yep. All right, let's talk a little bit about the crude reserves. So the U.S. government announced that it was going to release 50 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And the U.S. wasn't alone in this move. I think other countries, China and others, were part of this just to address the continually escalating crude oil pricing. Because if you remember, you go back a couple weeks, crude was well into the 80s. And has since dropped. And so it's hard to tell, honestly, whether that's because of this reserve move or the Omicron variant that's come out, because that also caused some speculation and drop in future demand potentially. And so crude has been hovering around $70. So whether it's from the reserves that have been released or from the variant or the scare of the variant, who knows? But there has been some impact around the price of oil.
But I'm guessing you're still paying a fortune to fill up that truck of yours, Rick.
That is correct.
Well, hopefully we'll see it soon on the pumps. Rail traffic continues to climb. Year to date, we're up nearly 5% from 2020 so far. And in recent weeks and months, it's been, in high single digits as far as the year-over-year numbers are concerned. And it's still relatively flat to 2019, maybe up a little bit, 0.5% or so. And a lot of it is because the rail got shut down for a large period of time after the winter storm Uri that we saw in late February and really into March.
Yeah, that one is maybe the most surprising that we talk about all the time, because it's been nothing but demand and manufacturing increases, but the year-over-year growth has basically been flat when you compare it to 2019. So it's surprising to me still.
For sure.
All right, an interesting story. A collaboration between IFF and Cabot. IFF produces some polysaccharides as part of their food business, and Cabot is partnering with them to modify those polysaccharides and create a reinforcing carbon for renewable or organic-based rubber additives. So pretty cool story.
Yeah, it is cool. Anytime you can see these bio-based materials come into play. So these are all based from sugar beets. All right, moving on to mergers and acquisitions. Westlake has announced the acquisition of the Hexion epoxies business. This is a cash deal, $1.2 billion purchase price. So obviously Westlake's sitting on a large pile of cash. Hopefully they're putting it to good use here. Westlake is looking to diversify into some high growth markets, get into the epoxies market. And it allows Westlake to get further downstream. They're obviously a big upstream company. Vinyl chloride and polyolefins being, in my mind, they're kind of two mainstay feedstocks. And this business had 1.5 billion in sales over the past 12 months, so pretty big deal. And I can't imagine there's much left of Hexion these days.
Yeah. It's very quickly reducing in size. It's pretty interesting when you look at Westlake and Hexion or epoxies and PVC. Those markets were hit so dramatically this year from Uri, and so it's interesting to see some change and consolidation.
Yeah, but they're definitely growth markets at the same time.
All right, and another deal, Cabot is announced that it's selling its Norit activated carbon business. The buyer looks to be One Equity Partners. If you didn't know, the activated carbon is used for purification of water, air, food, et cetera, multiple different applications there.
Yeah, so Cabot's got to raise some money in order to invest in those bio-based rubber reinforcements.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good point.
Cabot is active this week. All right, and our final story of the year, a story that we talked about several months ago. I want to say this was back in June. Celanese has finalized the purchase of the Santoprene business from ExxonMobil. Again, the acquisition price was 1.15 billion, and it just closed here in the last week or so. So I think Celanese is planning to invest in that business, where Exxon I don't think had done much with it in recent years, but there's some good synergies for Celanese, and looks like they're planning to invest. All right, that's it for this week's edition of Industry Reactions. We will return next week with a fresh batch of industry reactions. And until then, stay safe.
Take care.